7 days ago, I set an AI loop loose on my Claude Code skills. 19 mutation later, all three formats scored 65 out of 66. And here's exactly how it worked. And by the end of this, you'll understand what Autoresearch is, why manual skill improvement is a slow trap, and what the grinder produced in 7 days. And if you use Claude Code and you want your skills to stay sharp over time, this is for you. Most people who get serious about Claude Code do the same thing. They write a skill file, use it for a few weeks, tweak it, and when something feels off, they call that iteration. I did this, but that's not iteration, that's just guessing. Here's what Autoresearch is. Imagine you hired a coach who watched every single rep you did, had a precise rubric for exactly what perfect looked like, and every time you finished a set, immediately wrote you a revised training plan, not once a week, not after a bad session, every single rep. That's the grinder. It's not a person, it's two AI processes running back to back. One is the evaluator, it reads your skill file, scores it against a point rubric, and flags exactly what's weak. The other is the mutator. It takes that feedback and writes a new version of the skill file. Then the evaluator grades the new version and it loops and the loop runs again. Carpathy published a pattern and called it Autoresearch. The idea was that AI isn't just going to do the task, it's going to refine the instructions for how it does the task. And that's a different thing entirely. Most Claude Code users have AI do the work. Autoresearch has AI improve the instructions. And you may be asking right now, isn't this just telling Claude Code to improve the prompt? Not quite. The difference is that the evaluator, you're not just saying make this better, you're giving it a structured rubric per process with a specific criteria, and it scores every mutation against that rubric. It's the difference between telling someone to improve their jump shot, having them shoot 200 free throws while a coach marks every single flaw on the chart. One is vibes, and then the other one is the grinder. So why does this matter more than just tweaking prompts manually? Well, the score before the grinder ran was about 48 out of 66 for me. And then after a few days and 19 mutations, it hit 65. And the delta is the answer. Carpathy described it as the equivalent of a self-play in chess, except instead of playing them against itself, it's writing better instructions for itself. And now you probably know what the grinder is, but the structure isn't the hard part. The hard part is something most people get wrong the first time they run a loop like this. So here's the thing that nobody talks about with Autoresearch. The mutator is easy. You tell it to rewrite based on feedback, it rewrites. That's handled. The evaluator is the whole game. And that's exactly why the grinder works or doesn't. The evaluator decides. Let me show you exactly what I mean. When I run a /refine command, the first thing is it does not just improve anything, it just researches. The evaluator goes out and studies the domain, and that varies per process. If you're refining a thumbnail agent, for example, it researches what makes the thumbnails effective. If you're rewriting a LinkedIn image generator, which is what we're going to work on shortly, it researches what makes LinkedIn visuals stop and scroll. It varies, honestly, but it generates pass-fail criteria. And that's the difference between this and just asking Claude to make it better. When you say make it better, there's no rubric, no structure. The AI guesses what better means, and you just eyeball the result. The evaluator builds a scorecard before anything is touched, and it's basically an automated A/B testing for agent prompts. So this is a custom / command if you've ever used Claude Code, and if you're not going to have it. It's not something that's built. But what I would do is what I did. You just go back to the Autoresearch repo, copy the link, go back here, paste it, and ask Claude Code to understand it and to create a command for you. You can do something custom. Some people create skills, some people create a / command. It's honestly preference, but the concept stays the same. It's just a matter of how you want to get it invoked. And then once you have that, then you can start optimizing process. Another tip I want to provide is when you're going to optimize a process, depending on what it is, you may need to provide the context. Or I can go to YouTube, find like anywhere between 25 to 50 thumbnails that I like, and then screenshot them, because that's going to be my baseline. This is what good looks like, and that's how it's going to improve. And from there, it's going to decide, okay, out of all these images, study them, figure out what works, and create evals. And it's going to create those binary pass or fail criteria. It's going to loop, it's going to generate an image, and it's going to compare it against our rubric based on what good looks like, and then it's going to refine each loop. Here's the design decision that makes this actually work. The evaluator and the mutator never talk to each other directly. The mutator only sees what failed, the critique, and never sees the scoring rubric. And why? If the mutator could see the rubric, it would optimize for the test. It gained the criteria instead of actually fixing the agent. By keeping them separated, the mutator has to fix a real problem, not to score. And if your mutator is measuring the wrong things, the mutations will confidently march in the wrong direction, and they'll score higher while getting worse. And that's the trap that's easy to walk into. I'm going to show you a demo shortly, but just one more thing. The mutations are surgical. The mutator can't rewrite the whole agent. It can only tweak the instruction examples and validation rules. The agent's core identity is basically locked, and that prevents him from drifting into something completely different by round 4. Once the evaluator is sharp, the grinder just stops producing mutations. You'd have to undo, and that's when the real loop starts. The grinder sounds good on paper, but does it actually work? I have a LinkedIn image generator, and it's going to be a really cool exercise. You're going to see it improve to just generate amazing images that I can complement with actual LinkedIn blog posts. I'm saying right now, if I have to be real, I think they're like a D plus, maybe C minus at best. It works, but the images aren't terrible, but they're not stopping anyone's scroll. First thing, I'm going to hit /refine, and then I'm going to tell it, hey Claude, I dropped a LinkedIn images folder in the root, study them, and help me create evals so we can enhance our LinkedIn image agent. Yeah, our LinkedIn image generator agent. But we want to improve our LinkedIn image agent so that it generates quality images. So the LinkedIn images in the folder have a baseline of what good looks like from other creators. I'm gonna let Claude cook, and we're gonna see what it comes up with. It will run into issues, especially since LinkedIn is not easy to scrape. You'll need something like Apify, and even then, I don't know if it can read it. So this is just the easiest thing for me. I've done this process already for YouTube thumbnails, and it's working pretty well. I have now a thorough understanding of both the agents. So it understood where we are with the agent. It looked at the images to understand what good looks like and the different types of images. And just to give you some context, how I generated this is just out of like explaining what I thought I wanted, or I just never really refined it because I couldn't get it better. I was scared to actually regress to something worse. I just kind of kept it there. All right, so it's actually asking me for a LinkedIn post. That's how the process would work. I would dump a LinkedIn post and then it would just generate an image. Because part of when you're posting on it on social media, especially LinkedIn, you're like, okay, I got the post. I don't know what image, and you'll half-ass it, like maybe take a screenshot of a quote. That's what I did. And while this is running, something that you may want to consider and think about, once you get this configured, you want to prioritize like what workflows you want to do. It once told me that whatever worked for thumbnail, it couldn't work for my video. So I have a video editor agent, or it's triggered by this command, so it's /video, and it just edits my YouTube shorts and my YouTube long form. So let's say I record this entire video and I do double takes. It would take me like an hour or two sometimes to edit a video manually, deleting the fluff, all that stuff, listening to it over and over again. But the point is now it just takes me like 15, sometimes 15 minutes to 30 minutes per long form video. And a short, I'm getting to the point where shorts are now optimized. I don't even edit them. It works from something as simple as like thumbnails to all the way up to like, let's say LinkedIn post, to improving LinkedIn images, video editing. But note that you may have to tweak the process a little bit. This is the /refine that worked. For thumbnails, wasn't compatible with video because it's a little bit different. So it just modified the process for that specific thing. But nothing you need to worry about, just Claude will call it out for you and you just go from there. It's already starting. As you can see, it says it's iteration number 1. And what's really cool is you'll see, okay, it'll give it a score, because what the evals do is think of it like a scorecard. Every scorecard is going to be different for every process. Like if you're doing something simple as like LinkedIn post, the scorecard might be like 10 points. It might have a strong hook, strong middle, strong end, different criteria for the hook, the middle, whatever. Like this may have 15 points. And what it's doing is scoring it. So first iteration is going to get a baseline to say, okay, where does the current agent score right now as is? And it might get like a 10 out of 15. Right? And maybe the second run it gets at 11 out of 15. The point is it's going to mutate something small, as find the root cause and improve it over time. And sometimes it can go backwards. And so if it does, it'll mutate back. And so at the end of the day, it'll run all the iterations, 4 or 5 or whatever. And then based on the best one, the best mutation, it'll take that, and that will be the new instructions for your agent. If your process is complex, you don't want to have this running like 50 loops, you know what I mean? So you want to just cap it at some point, 5 to 10 times as a good starting point, depending on the process, and then you can just be done from there. So iteration 1, it scored a 10 out of 12. I think the evals might be like a smoking gun, meaning I think these evals were maybe too relaxed. Another thing I want to mention is that if you see these, it creates backups. So if it does have to revert back to iteration 1, 2, 3, or whatever, it'll do it for you. I have to generate a good image. You could just go to Nano Banana directly and just prompt it and then generate an asset for your LinkedIn post. I'm not the best prompter. And also I'm not a graphic designer, so I don't know what to post. I don't know if it should be a graphic images. I don't know if there should be an infographic. I don't know if there should be a quote. And so part of it is I just take what's winning from competitors. It's understanding what images work with what, and then not just what makes a good image, but when to use the right image. But anyways, that's the theory for this. That's what it's supposed to do. And how it works is the agent looks at the incoming blog LinkedIn post. It decides what type of image it needs, what will complement the post, and then it generates a prompt. It understands how to prompt Gemini. So that's part of the other skill. And then it generates a prompt, and then it feeds it to a Python script that then we just it hits the API, and then just almost like if you were using something like Kai AI or something like that, but you just have an AI agent generating the prompt for you for the image, and then it just shoots the message, waits for the image to come back, and then auto formats it to the right size, and then that's it. And then it drops it in somewhere in the output folder. So it's still going. It's already 11 minutes in deep. And as you can see right now, it's actually making, based on the first run and the feedback the critique made, then it's just making those adjustments. And so think of it like this. You could probably figure this out. If you didn't have this loop, it'll take you months, if not maybe years, to just find the perfect prompt, or just iteration through painful edits and learning. This is kind of speed running through that pain, so you can just get the best version up front, or at least a way better version than you would have just by prompting it and asking for something. All right, so this took about 20 minutes the first time, and then the second time I had to run it again. The reason why is because it was just testing the prompt, and that's not what I wanted, because that was like a half loop. Because if you think about it, it's looping and it's getting better with the prompt, but how would you ultimately know the prompt is working without looking at the image? So those are some of the issues you probably want to avoid up front, and just be very specific. And so anyways, here's what it generated. It generated a basic infographic for a post. It doesn't look bad, but it's kind of basic, and we looped it and mutated, and then it came out with this. But that's pretty much the entire loop. It took a little bit long, but as you can see, it scored itself, and then the second time it went well. So to recap, here's the score. As you can see, very basic, but you can see what it did. If I really want to push back, I would have to look at the templates and be like, okay, I wanted something more like this. So if I wanted some infographics like this, maybe that's what I would push it for. But I think for what it's worth, that infographic for me is good enough. And it's just a starting point, just to show you like a little taste of what it does. And if I want it to be even more stricter, we can evaluate the evals, which is like the scorecard. I mean, maybe it was too lean or too vague, maybe not strict enough. That's how it gets better. You give it good evals, and you can actually feed it with real data. One thing I want to note before we move on here from this section is I want to say that the part that really compounds is these edits aren't just for one image. They're in the agent file now. There's nothing you need to do to change. Every LinkedIn image I generate from here on forward will benefit from all these rounds of iterations. Whereas you don't have to say, hey, Claude, add it to my skill file or update my agent. That's the difference between tweaking one output and just improving an entire system. Now, just a few things we're saying about where this act goes. Auto research isn't just this one-time thing. I'm going to run the grinder again every few months. I said you can also iterate it with real data. So the loop runs again. The evaluator is updated with new criteria. The mutation runs. The skill file tracks reality instead of just falling behind. And that's how you keep Claude Code workflow sharp over time, not by manually editing prompts. What most people think, so is auto research going to replace writing good skills files manually? No, you still have to build the evaluator, refine the rubric, and know what good looks like before any of this runs. The grinder doesn't generate taste, it just compounds it. That's the distinction. I'm interested if you've tried running a loop like this on anything on your own workflow, drop a note in the comments. All right, so at this point you saw how the grinder ran on one specific use case for LinkedIn images. I ran it on other workflows for a few days, and the end result is just better output overall. And I didn't have to touch a single line of code. I didn't have to understand how to improve it over time. We just had a good North Star, and it just did the work for us. The evaluator found what was wrong, and the mutator fixed it, and that's just auto research in a nutshell. Subscribe. Thanks for watching.